What is going on, family? Welcome back to another video. For today's video, we absolutely destroyed the markets, caught a amazing trade, alerted the analysis as well as the move out to the Discord as well. So I wanted to do a trade recap so I can go over the trade, explain my thought process behind the trade, why I took it, and also show you guys how I actually managed to alert the exact level at where price was going to reverse before we caught 200% plus on the SPY calls, and contracts pretty much 2x'd and went crazy depending on obviously which contract you got. But the move was insane, trade was insane, and let's go ahead and hop on into it. So let's dive on to the charts here. Let me go ahead and minimize the face cam and get started. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead, put B down in the bottom left here, and let's go ahead and hop on into it. So the trade that we actually ended up taking today was going to be the SPY calls, right? Let me go ahead and just kind of show you guys the first real target, since that was just with the runners. Now let's go ahead. It's going to be that supply area up here. Now, boom. So like I mentioned, the trade that we ended up taking today and that ended up going insane, obviously, as you can see, is going to be the SPY calls. Now, this trade was actually presented very shortly after market opened as well. So we ended up pretty much finishing very early on into the morning and catching a solid trade early on into the morning. You can obviously see here I have my 543.70 demand area charted out. If you aren't familiar with supply and demand, I have a ton of videos on my channel covering what it is and how you can actually trade it, but just a short little description on what essentially it is. Demand are areas on the charts in which buyers have been the strongest or have presented the most amount of buying pressure, and vice versa, right? Supply are areas on the charts where sellers have presented themselves to be the most strongest, or we have just seen an excessive amount of selling orders being presented within the markets. Obviously, excessive buying orders or excessive selling orders are simply just more money going into the market, right? And money is what moves the market. So if there's going to be a lot of money going into the market at certain areas on the charts, that simply means those points on the charts is where price is likely to have strong moves, right? So that's exactly why we utilize supply and demand. So obviously you can see we have the 543.70 demand area charted out here. Now let's go ahead and hop on over to the Discord, right? So I sent out my pre-market analysis, in which I do every single morning pre-market, sharing my supply and my demand zone areas, right? Now specifically, you can see this is at 6:21 a.m. Pacific time. About 10 minutes before market open, you can see I alerted this 543.70 demand. I also alerted in pre-market review that that was a zone that I was eyeing to obviously go long on and take advantage of, right? I'm live every single morning in the Discord. But obviously you can see this exact 543.70 demand area was this exact 543.70 demand area as well, right? And then obviously shortly after market open, we started to get some opportunities. I started to see SPY calls setting up, and I alerted that to the community. I said, looking at SPY calls here, Tesla, started to do its thing as well. And then most importantly, you can see I said I'm taking SPY calls if we hold this 543.70 demand, same demand I've been mentioning. And then you can obviously see I sent out my setup here as well. And then you can see, boom, we hold and reject off of this 543.70 demand area very well. And you can see buyers starting to step in significantly. We get a strong push to the upside. These highs were initially my first point in which I was going to lock in a small amount of profits just to make sure I was, safe on that trade and could lock in some profits. You obviously see that trade got smashed through, or sorry, that target got smashed through. Alerted that to the community as well. You can see, boom, sniper, and you can see the trade moving in our direction. Obviously, trade is starting to see the buying pressure that we were obviously expecting, alerted that I was taking my first heavy trim at that point, just how I mentioned to you guys. That was my target area. And then Tesla started to do its thing as well. And then looks like going on into the general chat is where I started to alert the trade as well, right? So you can see the trade continuing to move in our direction and go absolutely insane. And then you can see 211% on those SPY calls, right? Absolutely going crazy. So you can see how well that demand zone ended up working out. Obviously, same exact zone that I sent out pre-market. And my main exit area, or my main area that I was looking to at least take a chunk of profits out of my position, was this supply. Obviously, since supply is an area where we usually expect selling pressure to be inputted heavier than usual. So I'm like, okay, just to be safe, I'm going to go ahead, take a chunk of profits out at this supply in case we see that reverse to the downside. Obviously, and it worked out in my favor, and we ended up seeing excessive buying pressure still being continued to be presented, and strong buying, and price just continued to move up. Obviously, past this supply, I only had runners on my position. So here is where I took my first trim. Here's where I took my second trim, which was the heavy trim. Now I really only have runners at this point, and you can see we ran all the way to these highs in which the contracts ran a little over 200%, right? So absolute beauty. And then obviously throughout the day, I just continue to hold and manage my runners. Obviously, I have stop loss for these runners, right? But like I mentioned, at the supply area was where I took out a chunk of profits / exited a chunk of my position, right? Just making sure that I always have correct size management, and I'm always taking profits, right? So that's very important. But that's really going to be that in terms of the trade. You can see beautiful move. It was honestly a very short trade. You can see here I entered around 645. It ended up hitting my main target at 655. So literally a beautiful 10-minute trade. And then like I said, at that point, I just had my runners. I started my day at that point, went to the gym, and trade still ended up moving in my direction. So that's going to be that beautiful trade. That was actually the only trade that I took today. I did alert a setup on Tesla. You can see here if I go to the analysis and go to Tesla, you can see at 6:28 a.m. Shortly before market opened as well, I sent my Tesla analysis. You can see here we have 188.50 supply, right? 188.50 supply on Tesla. And then shortly after on Tesla, you can see that 188.50 supply on Tesla. You can see right here, 188.50 on Tesla started that push to the downside, right? So both zones / all of the analysis I sent out is pretty much printing, right? It's free money at this point. And then you can see that zone continued to work out beautifully in our favor, obviously moving and rejecting off of that supply zone. So just another reason on why supply and demand is so strong within these markets. Obviously, like I mentioned, if you want to learn more about supply and demand, I have so many other videos talking about how you can trade supply and demand, spot it, what it is, etc. I highly recommend going and checking out all of those videos. But other than that, if you would like to trade live with me and get access to all of the analysis, zones, everything that I send out, also get access to live trading with me, go ahead, click that link in the description and join the winning team. Other than that, family, I'll see you guys in the next video. Much love.